Good evening and welcome to Crossroads. Rumors were swirling last month. 14 cities in the United States are planning to ban meat. The news made its rounds mostly on conservative news websites. The Federalist reported that the plan for 2030 outlines some very ambitious goals. These include zero consumption of meat, zero consumption of dairy, 3 new clothes items per year per person, zero private vehicle ownership, and 1 short return airline flight per person once every 3 years. Close to 100 cities have signed on to the deal. In the United States, this includes Austin, Boston, Chicago, Houston, Los Angeles, Miami, New Orleans, New York City, Philadelphia, Phoenix, Portland, San Francisco, Washington, D.C., and Seattle. The Federalist also noted that the program is largely funded by Democrat billionaire Michael Bloomberg. And as expected, establishment news outlets were quick to label the whole thing as fake. Just a big conspiracy theory. Just another example of why disinformation is a threat to humanity. PolitiFact declared social media post distorts climate report. No U.S. city is banning meat, dairy, new clothes, or cars. And it adds, we could find no evidence that any U.S. cities have agreed to ban dairy, new clothes, meat, or private cars. Snopes labeled it all as false, and it says there's no plan for 14 U.S. cities to ban meat, dairy, and private cars by 2030. And it adds as well, we also found no evidence that a group of U.S. cities had signed on to plans to ban such products for consumption. But dig into these a bit more and you'll find something a bit odd. There's a play on words. The articles are deceptively written. In their defense, they're latching on to the technical errors made by some of the program's critics. But in essence, the agenda is real. It's very much real. And of course, they note this to an extent. If you read the so-called, fact checks, the technicalities are this. The cities are not planning to ban meat outright. They're pushing to reduce consumption of meat, with zero consumption being the target. You get that? They're not banning meat. They're merely trying to make us have zero consumption of meat. And the same goes for the other goals. They're very much real, but they're not bans technically. And the other technicalities that the program behind this is not binding. The cities in this are doing it voluntarily, and it's through a global coalition of mayors. It's all part of the C40 Cities program. In October 2019, it declared on its website, 14 cities commit to sustainable food policies that will address the global climate emergency. And it alleges that eating a sustainable diet and avoiding food waste could cut greenhouse gas emissions from the food we eat by more than 60%. This was all part of what it called the Planetary Health Diet, which it claimed could save 11 million lives each year if adopted universally. And it says as well that mayors will work with their citizens to achieve a planetary health diet for all by 2030. So is this meat ban real? Well, according to the C40 Cities website, it's not quite the case. It says that mayors will use their procurement powers to change what kind of food cities buy and introduce policies that make healthy, delicious, and low-carbon food affordable and accessible for all. They'll also reduce food loss and wasted food. In other words, it's not technically a ban. Again, it's an agenda that mayors across the United States and around the world have signed on to. And they're going to be using the powers in office to change the kinds of foods that cities buy and to enact policies to try to bring about this agenda. Now, we can already see this happening as well, globally in fact. We can take New York City as an example. The same year the C40 Cities announcement was made, then New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio announced New York City's Green New Deal, a $14 billion initiative to fight climate change.
Let's be clear, we have until 2030 to start changing things fundamentally, or our lives just won't be the same. So we are not just passing laws and rules and telling people they have to do things differently. This is a massive undertaking. The New York City Green New Deal is a $14 billion effort to change things while we still can, to make a difference while we still can.
So what does that $14 billion Green New Deal mean in practice? Well, New York City's Chief Climate Policy Advisor, Danielle Zarilli, laid it out.
It also means converting every single vehicle in our city fleet to electric and renewable fuels, going carbon neutral for our entire fleet. It means expanding our solar, which we've already increased 7-fold since 2013. It means cutting our beef purchases 50%. Phasing out processed meat, a major source of our emissions, implementing congestion pricing, speeding up buses, prioritizing streets for pedestrians, the list goes on, and moving to a mandatory citywide organics program across the entire city.
Now, Eric Adams, the current New York City mayor, was actually involved as well at the time. In 2017, as Brooklyn Borough President, Adams worked with Bill de Blasio to implement Meatless Monday at 15 schools in Brooklyn. This Meatless Monday program was expanded by then Mayor Bill de Blasio in 2019 to all of New York's public schools. That's 1,700 schools. Here's Eric Adams championing the move back in 2019.
We're going to the heart of the matter. The number one destruction of our ozone layer is the overconsumption of meat in this country. And so we're starting here with Meatless Mondays.
Then in 2022, last year, that was after Mayor Adams took office, then New York City, under the New York City, he declared that its public school system would go meat-free every Friday. That means there's no meat now for school kids in New York on Mondays or Fridays, for those keeping track. And it's not ending there. In April this year, Mayor Adams vowed to reduce New York City's food-based emissions at agencies by 33% over the next 7 years. In other words, by 2030. Perfectly in line with that 2030 initiative we're told isn't really a thing.
That's why today we're committed to reducing the city food emission by 33% by 2030 and challenging our private sector partners to reduce by 25% by 2030. What this means is shifting the kinds of food we buy and serve. We've already started this work in our hospitals and our schools. During my time.
And yes, this is part of an agenda against meat. Well, everyone, that's it for YouTube. For the rest of the episode, come join us on Epoch TV. We have some important stuff to go into. We'll be talking about things I can't talk about on YouTube, such as climate change and how the climate emergency is fake. Also, we have some interesting stuff to go into as well. We'll talk more about the global food crisis and how it's being manufactured. Roman Balmakov, host of Facts Matter, is going to be here with us, talking about his new documentary, No Farmers, No Food. Don't miss that as well. That's also going to be on Epoch TV for subscribers. Another reason to come join us there. Breathe the fresh air of freedom. You have my special features there as well. A lot of great content, great shows. Right now we have a flash sale as well, 25 cents a week. So come on over, folks. That said, I will see you there, and thanks as always.
People from 160 countries illegally cross the U.S.-Mexico border and give themselves up to Border Patrol. But what about the ones who evade Border Patrol? These are known as the gotaways.
You can safely assume that anybody that went through the extra effort to avoid U.S. Border Patrol was not an asylum seeker by default.
It may not be today, it may not be tomorrow, but somewhere down the road, if somebody rapes and kills somebody, and we find out that they came through here on my watch, that's unacceptable.
These men had surrounded my house. They were banging on my back door. They were banging on my front door.
You can't understand it unless you're out here seeing it every day. 21 dead bodies on the property.
Code 3 response.
Is it wrong to ask people to come to your front door of your home? Then why would it be wrong to ask people to come to the front door of our nation?
Their primary goal is to circumvent the checkpoints, go undetected.
People that do not want to surrender, those are going to be the potential terrorists, the criminals, the real threat to the U.S.
We were hoping the federal government would step in and do something, but they didn't.
We have no clue who they are or where they're going. That's the scary part.